I first met my co-host when she had a syndicated talk show all about sex. Sex with Sue McGarvey. And I am the milkman John Milkey, host of The Milkman Show, heard on radio stations across North America. And my home base, blasttheradio.com. We're glad you're here. Let's get turned on. Oh my gosh, I'm still buzzing about the amazing Ducklings party. My first time being a real part of your Ducklings party. That was a good time, Sue.
You killed it. The best DJ in the entire world. I've said to everybody, we are never gonna, the bar is raised so high. It was so much fun. So, not quite naked dancing, but dancing with our hands in the air at a Playboy mansion in Barhaven. I know those things seem
I thought about getting naked. I wasn't sure if I should.
Well, just there's a few people in corners, but beyond that, it was just dancing and great food and great company and outstanding music and an amazing venue, and it was really fun.
I'm glad you're happy, and listen, you put on an amazing party. So if you've not been to a Duckling event, you need to get on board with the Ducklings. That was, bar none, an absolute hoot. All right, let's get to it. It's Turned On the podcast. We begin with this question to you, Sue. How important is sex in a relationship?
Pretty damn important, but it's defined by the people, right? If people are happy with it once a month, both of them, then how it may not be that important, right? It's understand that, like anything else, it's about limits and about understanding the new rules for sex. And yes, it's really important in a relationship, but I also think it's about being able to communicate what we need and how do we do that. So we're going to get into, later on in the show, going to talk about what happens if you have differing sex drives.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that the idea is, that when people are sort of starting new relationships, it's coming at it from a single. This came out of a discussion I had with a single this week who are saying, Sue, I don't know what the new rules are. We got rid of the old rules about, you can only have sex on the third date and blah, blah, blah. And the old rules were supposed to make us happy. But right now, she says, now I feel lost. I don't know what we're supposed to do. And, when you talk about limits of sex, when you limit food or alcohol, it produces healthier results. But if you limit sex, it doesn't necessarily produce healthier results. But the idea is to have, sort of things good, what does good sex look like for two people? And what does good sexual culture look like for everybody around them, right? It raises the standards of what a good sexual encounter might look like. It doesn't, anyway, I get frustrated with norms. I don't know about you, but you must feel it a bit, being in the kink community, that there is like these, and in truth, it's like this in the kink community. You go there and saying, we're started a scene, you don't interrupt it, and you need to talk to this person's dom to talk to her. And it's just like, I get so sick of the boundaries around everything. And I think boundaries are good, but
boundaries are good when they are defined between the players. Boundaries are not good when other people are imposing their views on what boundaries should be. Let people figure this out for themselves. What's right for me and the people I'm involved with is not necessarily what's right for you and what you're involved with. It's a mutual respect thing. We all have different tastes. We all have different, religious views, because I know religion plays a big part into how people feel about sex and whatever else. And just be respectful that we're not all the same.
So let me give you the scenario. It was a young woman. She was young. And she's like, look, I went out with a guy I hooked up with on Tinder, but I didn't hook up with him. We were out and he wanted to come back. And I said, no, I wanted to get to know him better. And my friends were gobstopped that I did that. They're like, you had an opportunity to have sex with a hot guy. Why didn't you take it? And they were floored we didn't have sex. And she's like, what are the, how important is sex in the relationship? I think it's important, but I don't necessarily have to be on the second date. And this expectation of how things are supposed to be,
See, that's just it. Her friends need to respect her choice and her wants.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're going to get into it later in the show about couples and what happens if you have a different sexual appetite. I have a couple of really good questions. So I've really appreciated the questions. And this one wasn't really a question directed at us, but she was just so frustrated because she didn't know whether she was supposed to put out or wasn't. She's reading all this stuff saying, if you're interested in him, don't put out. And she's like, I have no rules. I have no understanding of how important it is in a relationship and in a new process. So she was just pulling her hair out. And I thought it was interesting because she can't be the only one who's trying to figure out sort of the new models and
I
paradigms
really,
about
so
what is
yeah,
going on with
I
sex.
really think the rule of thumb is do you. Do what feels right for you.
There, you are such a sage, wise thing. All right, that's a great idea. So send us your questions if you've got them, because
Mm.
we really want to tackle this. Sue@sexwithsue.com.
And you can text the show as well. If you're stateside, it's 941-725-6455. It's 925-725. Pardon me, 941-725-MILK. And in Canada, 613-604-6464. Next up, Sue, a question that has been emailed to you at sue@sexwithsue.com. Someone who has one of those husbands, I may be one of those husbands, who just wants sex all the time.
Yep. And that differing. So let me read you. Let me read you the piece of the question.
Sure.
This wasn't necessarily a husband situation, but I got a question. So
Or men. Okay.
let me read it to you.
I happen to be a husband, so I default to that. I
Yes.
apologize. Yeah.
Have an uneven. My partner and I have an uneven libido. Her sex drive feels like it's decreased a bit over time, but even at the start of the relationship, it always felt unbalanced. I've dealt with it until now, but it can put a strain on me to the point where I need to ask her to leave the room so I can masturbate. It can also be uncomfortable because I don't want to force anything on her, but I'm so sexually frustrated. I'll spend days with her together waiting for her to be in the mood, but more often than not, it doesn't happen. We believe her low sex drive just happens this way. It's also because of stress. And when we do have sex, it can be painful for her because I'm a little bit too big. And even with lots of foreplay and lots of lube. We have toys, but we don't use them very often because it feels like an extra effort. We've realized this dynamic affects the aspects of the relationship more than we thought. So it's a great question. And here's the skinny about it, right? It's normal for guys to want sex every day. It's normal for young men to want it 3 times a day. So don't feel like you're a mutant because you want it a lot. And for partners wanting it all the time, wanting it less than that, or not being in the mood because women A are responsive, and B, if they've got a lot of other things going on, it's not top of mind. And if their bodies aren't driving it, it's not top of mind. So it can be really difficult. And I used to say, oh, let's compromise and you can do it. We can do it once a week. But everybody was pissed off with me. I don't want to talk to the therapist because I'm pissed off with her because we're always having to compromise and she's not hearing me because I'm still frustrated and I feel like, and then the other partner feels like they got to put out all the time and it's just bullshit. Right. And that sometimes there are things you can do, right? If you are unfamiliar with other ways of expressing attention, pleasure, etc. I have a lot of guys who think sex is like the way if they just want to be touched, but most guys, it's not that a hug that they want. They want an orgasm. So whether you get an artificial vagina, whether you give them a medicinal hand job, blow job, whatever you can try. And if you can't, what else is going on? But for most guys, it's the need to feel wanted, needed, touched. And I tell women, chart your arousal. Do little happy faces when you are in the course of a day if you're turned on. There used to be, I don't know if you remember that, they used to have one of the local radio stations would have a thing where they would call the husband. It was a contest. I don't know, you got concert tickets or whatever. If you call your husband and got them to leave work to come home and do you, and it was on the radio. And I remember the one, and she's in Ottawa.
My show, but yeah.
Yeah, he's in Smith Falls, like an hour away.
Right.
And he's up to his ears. You could just tell he's up to his ears. And she says, come home. I'm horny for you. I want to do you. And he's like, I'll be there in 45 minutes. Like, it's just like, doesn't matter what work is going on. He would drop everything he was doing to race over there to surface
And
her.
if he did, then they would win the concert.
Yeah. And so then she cracks up and the other radio announcers come in and he's thinking I was getting the cookie and fuck, I got, concert tickets. Like how I want that. I really want to go home and have sex with you. So, so this couple are beginning to talk about opening up their relationship, which I talked to them about. And said, maybe that's a thing so that you're not quite as frustrated. I understand you want to stay together, but is that something, because it's probably not going to change the way you need. You're not going to be on the same page. So finding somebody you connect with and who sexually lines up is tough. I have a bunch of clients who go get happy endings massages every 2 weeks because they
You
find
talked
looking.
about you talked about that last week or the week before too. Um, and the bugaboo there is that cheating? And a lot of people, I think, just, the traditional way they've grown up and the
They
teachings,
think that it
etcetera,
is.
they have
And
a very difficult time accepting that. But I think that's a reasonable solution. It's a paid professional in a controlled environment. There's no love. She's not gonna run away with your husband, etcetera,
no, 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 no.
right?
So it's just can will that like I think you brainstorm, you put that in the list of options because, there are some women for whom, they're no longer attracted to their partner, but most of the time it's not about their partner. Most of the time it's I'm just not into it or my sex drive is naturally a lot less and I don't really want it. I'm happy with it once a week. You're happy with it twice a day. We've got a problem.
So, does a lot of this boil down to communication again and just understanding each other's currency? Like the challenge I have had for a long time, my wife and I have had for a long time, is reading each other's signals and signs. It's not a matter of, you know, she's not horny or I'm not horny. We both are, but at different times of the day, like you said, and we express it in very different ways. And and over the course of how many years we've been together, almost 30, and this is an evolving communication all the time because needs change, life changes, etc. You need to be in constant communication as to what did I miss there? What did I not see? What am I not seeing?
Well, as I said, I have right here, I have my calendar. I also have it on my phone, but I have a giant calendar. Look. And if and I tell people, get one of these, chart it if through the day you were turned on a part of your day for women who have a lower sex drive, little happy face and the time of day that you were, see if there's any kind of rhythm because women follow these cycles. And if you're,
And by the way, for those listening to the podcast
oh,
and not
yes,
privy to seeing the
there's a
podcast,
giant
it's a
calendar.
large calendar. It's a very,
So
I can
put
attest.
down
Yeah.
a little happy face, put down a neutral face, meaning you could probably be convinced today, or a sad face saying, no bloody way, don't touch me.
You know what I love about that too, Sue, is that for like if you're the female and you're posting the happy face stickers, and I'm horny here, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. For your partner, out of the corner of their eye, oh my gosh, there's something I'm not seeing here that I need to tune into. It's a very good visual representation of just how often that opportunity is actually there.
I think people need to be a lot more mindful about it.
Yep.
And if you can, and again, we've talked about scheduling. I think it's a good idea. We've talked about doing things in different adventures. We've talked about realizing that your partner needs to feel wanted. They need you to initiate. And if you're the lower sex drive person, you need to make sure it comes up. There's a reminder on your phone a couple times a week. If I'm not ready for sex, what can I do to make my partner feel attractive and wanted? That may be, as I said, a sexy text. It may be a boob shot. It may be a little note saying, I love you. I pick you all over again. Come over here. I want to squeeze your bum, whatever that is. But you have to make sure that they feel wanted. I think it's critical.
Okay, now I'm not big into weed. I have just started experimenting with it. I smoked my first joint at 32. A friend hooked me up when she was gobsmacked. What do you mean you've never smoked? So hooked me up. I was terrified of it. I thought I was going to get
Mhm.
arrested. Of course, there's a weed shop now in just about every single corner. And just heading into the pandemic, my anxiety raged, and I was introduced to a lot of the benefits of THC and cannabis as far as calming yourself down. So I've got a vape pen, which I use. And I don't hit it often, but when my anxiety is really going crazy, I do. And it's been very beneficial. So I'm very open to the conversations about weed. And you've got some interesting facts about the best weed for sex. I can't wait to hear this because, like I said, it just makes me sleepy. So
Yeah. So I tried it in university and high school and then took a
sure.
break when I had kids because, between trying to get pregnant, nursing babies, you just don't have time for that. And your body can't be doing that kind of crazy shit.
Mhm.
So and I've been reintroduced and I never liked smoking. I've been a lifelong non-smoker. And to me, even a little bit hurts my
See, and
throat.
I was a smoker, and my fear now if I smoke this is that I will probably take up smoking again, so I'm
No,
better
it
with the
hurts
vape
it
at
hurts
this
my
time.
throat and my lungs, and I don't like
Yeah.
it, but
Yeah.
the chocolate edibles, which are good chocolate, they're yummy, they're candy, And I can take 5 milligrams and it feels like 2 glasses of wine for me without the calories. So that's kind of that's the thing. It's like, I don't want the calories, but I want the little low grade kind of happy. I'm at a party. I'm safe. I'm not driving. Can I do this? Well, they found out that it was a Stanford University study that said that 61% of adults plan to incorporate cannabis at some point into their sex life. And for women, 24% of women, it increased their sexual desire, their ability to orgasm. It's not a magic horny pill, but it can really help deal with inflammation and pain. And I'm going to do a really cute call the next little while with a friend I've known for 20 years, his longtime duck, Rich Dufour, who owns the Spirit Leaf stores in town, and ask him about, what his recommendations are. But these are the 5 kind of top weed choices. I don't know. I don't go into them enough to say, hey, do they always have? But Amnesia Haze is apparently the best weed for role playing. If you decide you want to get out of your head and pretend you're somebody else, Amnesia Haze. I don't know.
Amnesia haze. Okay.
Uh-huh. The Blue Dream, apparently it smells and tastes like blueberries, melts
Ooh,
away any anxiety and makes you a little more open to suggestion. All
okay.
right. Blueberry Dream. Do-si-do is a psychedelic. And if you want to be all like, let's just this, apparently it's the wild. I want to have, if you want to have sex with, pretend you're somebody else, this is apparently the brand. I don't
And
know. I
they
haven't
called
tried
it
it.
do-si-do, which takes me back to square dance lessons in high
Yeah.
school, which were
So
awkward and
I'm
weird.
thinking Sound of Music, but that's what comes into
Oh,
my head. Yeah.
sure.
Something called GSC, which stands for Girl Scout cookies. So Girl Scout cookies, if you want kind of the kink, if this apparently the Girl Scout cookies is best lead into hardcore kink pounding, let's be rough. I don't know. So
I'm
that
I'm okay,
I
as
know.
someone from the kink community, I'm trying to make the I'm
The
trying to
leap, I know, right?
yeah, I'm connecting the dots between Girl Scout cookie, Thin Mint, tie me up, hurt me daddy. Don't
I
know.
know. Well, apparently that's the brand you buy if
All right.
you're a little hardcore. And Granddaddy Purple is the all-round sort of, you want just a great put you in the mood kind of weed choice, Granddaddy Purple. So if you can go in and ask, I don't know if all stores have these all brands, but this was the definitive list according to the research. And there was one in the Journal of Sexual Medicine. Anyway, we're going to talk to the expert, have a listen
Okay.
to my conversations with him about what is local, and he's going to give us the sort of the down low on it. And you can go out and figure out if you want to try a little bit. Maybe they'll give you like a little tiny sample of each, and you report back. Send us a note if you've tried this and you're like, "OMG, Sue, this is the really one. We need to try this one." Then let us know.
Girl Scout cookies. I'm on my way. Start the car. All right. Next up, I hope I'm saying this right. Coit-o-philia.
Yes, basically it is the fear of sex and sexual intimacy.
Okay.
Yes. And it came out as a stat about, again, I've been doing a lot of work around singles because according to the the research, 42% of Americans, that's over 91 million of them, are single. And I was wondering, and somebody said to me, Sue, I had a partner. And I'm quite convinced they had a fear, like a legitimate fear of sexual intimacy. And I went, "You're right. I haven't talked about it." So genophobia or erotophobia are other names for the fear of sex or sexual intimacy. It's more than just a basic aversion or hate. This is when sexual intimacy is sought, it might result in severe anxiety or panic attacks. So some people may experiencing these emotions just by thinking about it. And for somebody like you who you understand anxiety,
Mhm.
but if you were anxious about even the thought of it, right? Gymophobia is the dread of getting naked, right? Heterophobia is the dread of people of the opposite sex. Coit-o-philia, fear of sexual activity. So all of these things happen, and they're worsening emotions if the triggers haven't started. And it comes from a variety of things, right? It's PTSD, sexual abuse, something bad has happened. I had a client I swear to God. We did the Pervy Book Club last night. We had 2 emergency room nurses, in the audience. And
They're
we were
always a great
telling about, oh yeah,
conversation.
they were, I'm going somewhere, but they were talking about, strange things in people's rectums in the
Mhm.
emergency room. Apparently kielbasa was the one that won. And I guess the salt from the meat, from the deli meat, takes the salt and it sort of swells up and you cannot get it out. Anyway, so no
Oh
kielbasa
my
in your ass.
gosh.
No ass kielbasa, just saying. But the idea is that I had a client, who had that story about being stuck together as a new couple. Like she was a virgin. They had sex for the first time. She clamps down. He has like a really hard time getting out. They have to call 911. She
Whoa.
has to have a shot muscle relaxant to let it go. Oh yeah, true story. Because those muscles are strong and push a baby out with a head the size of a cantaloupe. Boom.
I
Anyway,
guess.
so he's now afraid of sex because the first time it happened with this,
Right.
and she's anxious because she's got vaginismus, which is a spasm of the vaginal muscle. So it's a disaster, right? Some people have had body shaming or, sort of issues around that. And, just a lot of challenges. So there, therapy and CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy,
Mhm.
otherwise known in the kink community as cock and ball torture, but that's
Yeah, no, they're not the same.
not the
Yeah.
same thing. But there
My
are
my
things you
my therapist, by the way, learned a lot about me when he brought up that we were gonna do some CBT, and of course, I started to giggle, and he hadn't heard the term as it pertained to or pretended to have
I
not
know.
heard the
I
term.
I have a girlfriend who has it in her email address, and everybody thinks it's about therapy, but I know better. Yeah. Her other email address is bootho. So, yeah, you get enough with that.
I think I like this friend. Anyway,
Uh-huh. You would really like this friend.
I'm sure.
So, yeah. So just understand that some people get panic attacks, but if you're stopped from dating, like I've had clients who won't date because they're worried about their erections or won't date because they come too fast. And so they don't want to get into it because then they don't want to come like before they even penetrate. And, there are things we can do, lots of things you can do. So just take a deep breath and realize we can walk through this process and get you better, but giving up on love and intimacy for the rest of your life because of a fear. And, and this fear is not something to go, oh, because phobias are real,
Sure.
right?
Of course.
If you're afraid of snakes and you really have a snake phobia, like it affects your ability to go out in the summer and, oh my God, I'm going to run into it. So this is a real thing, but there are things you can do.
So I have a question then. So
Sure.
someone who deals with coit-o-philia, and they have that fear and it's rational, etc., do they still crave sex?
Depends on the aversion, right? If every time you go by somebody and they hit you in the back of your head, right? I always said I once threw up on banana pudding, and even the thought of banana pudding makes me nauseous. That's an aversion,
Okay.
right? If every time you think about sex is like and it's so awful, eventually your body stops doing it. But if they're they'll wake up with erections, they'll have sexual dreams, their body wants to ejaculate, they want to masturbate, they've got a sex drive, and they often will be chronic masturbators because they're not getting any, but it's the thought of being in a situation because it's going to cause the panic attack from having a bad experience and or some kind of usually it's related to some kind of past trauma, which is
Okay.
why sexual abuse is so powerful and we need to be really diligent to make sure
Hmm.
that you're getting love and understanding. So
Okay, a new term on that I've never heard before, and certainly something I hadn't considered before. So, thank you for that. That's amazing, and good conversation as always here on Turned On the podcast. Hey, if you got a question for Sue, you got comments on the podcast. We're on Google, we're on Spotify, we're on Apple Podcasts, we're on iHeart, we're on Amazon Music. Ask your smart speaker to play Turned On the podcast. We'd love to hear from you. What's the email address, Sue?
Sue at sexwithsue.com.
Forward to another conversation a week from now.